So let me just read a question. It was actually written in Yiddish, but from what I understand, it could be addressed in English as well. Dear Rabbi Gruen, do you have a list of examples of healthy boundaries? What does it mean that somebody should be in control of things that pertain to themselves, especially when it comes to husband and wife? When one tells the other, you should be doing this XYZ because I mean you're good when I'm telling you to do it, or this is what the Torah says you have to do, or only men understand this thing, that's why I should be the one to decide, or only women understand this topic, that's why I should be the one to decide. Or if somebody says, you could do as you please, but only if you explain yourself so that I can understand why you're doing something. And if not, then I'll just have to assume that you're just a bad person who wants to be mean and do things not the way I like it, because if you can't explain it, then why would you not want to do things the way I want? Especially for a person who is a big balmidus, and or somebody tells you, because you're a big balmidus, that's why you should be doing things the way I like, out of good character. Okay, thank you. So I again, this is a topic I've spoken about many times, a topic that I designated a chapter in my book about, healthy boundaries. And I'll just start off by saying that I think this is a topic it's one of those topics that was once so simple. It was once relatively given, relatively understood. And, as time goes on, a lot of things change. What people used to understand, certain basics, certain fundamentals, certain concepts, and they become challenged over time by different education, different vibes, different messages people get, and different things that people do. And all of a sudden it becomes like a big chiddush. A lot of times when I talk about this idea of healthy boundaries, I'm me and you're you, and people are like, yeah, but what do you mean? But we're married. And to me, this is, I don't know where you got that question from even. Somebody recently shared with me a booklet that was put out about understanding the Jewish concept, let's call it, of a Torah marriage. Who's the husband? Who's the wife? What are they getting into? What's expected? And he started off in the introduction saying, this was once so simple. And now it's like such a chiddush that I'm hoping people will actually be able to relate what it says in this booklet. And it was well sourced, very well sourced, with Mamur Chazal and things from the Poiskim and the Rishonim and the Achronim. And on the one hand, it really is so simple. On the other hand, I think it's for so many people not simple. So I think it's relatively the same when it comes to learning the idea of healthy boundaries, respecting each other's boundaries, not intruding and not controlling and not overtaking one the other. I think this was once more simple. I think it was, but I don't know. I wasn't around then. But I think it starts by understanding that, and this is also something that I reference to sometimes. If you want to understand it well, the concept of healthy boundaries, look at healthy relationships. And when I say healthy ones, I don't mean, just anyone. I mean people who are really getting along and really appreciating each other in any relationship, not just in marriage. I mean, this whole idea has nothing to do with marriage, by the way. Any relationship, whatever it may be, it could be marriage relationship, it could be work relationship, it could be siblings, it could be neighbors. When you see people that are truly getting along and they appreciate each other and they're helping each other and complementing each other's, they're both gaining from each other from the relationship, etc. You look and you'll see there's usually a healthy consideration and respect of each other's boundaries, which means that this is the healthy way to live, is the way people, I think, once understood that it was meant to live, and the people who are doing this are the ones that are happier. And the people that are challenging this are usually the ones that are less happy. So I think it's just important to know that, if you want to look for reference, you want to look for, you want to look to see this in real life, look at those people who you truly believe have a good and healthy relationship, and you'll see that it's usually done with this kind of respect. I'll just address this last point before I go into the topic, the point of being a bal midas. When somebody tells you, well, you have good midas, so that's why you should be doing this. Or if somebody even says it about themselves, I have very good midas, that's why I'm going to do X, Y, Z. Good midas are everything. Everything. We all need to improve our midas and learn Orch Tzadikim and learn different sfurim that talk about good midas. And it's everything. It's refining a character, which everyone has what to work on. Different things for different people, but everyone has what to work on. But to confuse midas toivus with weakness, or midas toivus with being tolerant of somebody who's taking advantage or etc., that's an old mistake. That's not what good midas is. Good midas means when somebody is considerate, they think of someone else, they respect someone else, they take care of someone else. It doesn't mean that it's not self-obliteration. Good midas doesn't mean that you become less because you have good midas. It means you make place for someone, you understand it, you care for someone, you feel for someone. That's all it means. And very often this confusion, causes a lot of problems which we start calling good midas. Now, let me try to explain the concept a little bit, because I spoke about this so many times, and I have, in one of the original Shalom Bayis Shim where I talk about it, there's only so much you could get into each class, but I just want to bring out the concept to the best of my ability here, for the sake of clarity. When two people get into a relationship, it's important that nobody lose their individuality. Not because we're partners, or neighbors, or siblings, or spouses, does either one of them lose their individuality, which means whatever you had before you got into the relationship, you still have. When somebody's single, or somebody's on their own, or somebody owns a business, or whatever it is, they are themselves, and they're in control of that. And they should be living life that way. They should be understanding their rights and the options that they have and decisions they can make. Even a servant or a slave, Toiradik, Eved Ivri, Ugeret, and even Eved Kanani, there's a way you have to treat them. They don't become, nobody loses their identity in any relationship. He could be your slave, and he didn't lose his identity. He's still a person. He has to be treated a certain way. He has certain decisions he can make. He has certain things that he doesn't have to do. Certainly a Yid, certainly somebody who's not a slave, but all he is a husband, or all she is a wife. There's no reason for anyone to feel that they lose their individuality. So there's automatically a certain part of a person which always remains to himself, to make his own decisions, things that pertain to himself. Now, when you come into a relationship and you're bound to another person, and each relationship has its own level of that kind of binding stuff, it's important to understand what am I being bound to? I'm being bound to the relationship, but what does that mean? What does that dictate? Does it dictate that anything the relationship will now decide has to happen now it takes me over, and my individuality gets lost to the side? And who is the relationship? Does the relationship mean the other person? It's so important to break it down. And the three categories that I talk about a lot, and like I said, I spoke about this in so many classes that I think it's good to listen to it. The idea of mine, yours, and ours. In any relationship, it doesn't matter how close or how far, how strong, how long-lasting, how short-term the relationship is. There's what's mine, there's what's yours, and there's ours. Mine means mine. The things that I do, the things that are personal, the things that I say or go or behave. It's about me, though. I know that you have your opinions about it. You have your preferences about what I should be doing. You have the things you like very much, you dislike very much, you'd appreciate, but it's mine. And same thing is the other way around. It's yours. You didn't lose your identity because you married me. It's so important to understand that. And then there's ours. And every relationship has the ours. Sometimes it's just a short-term thing, like the teacher in the classroom. So we're sharing a room, and the temperature in the room, and the lighting in the room, and other things, and the topic that's being discussed, and how it's being discussed. But other than that 1 hour that we're together, we have nothing in common almost, And then the teacher could be doing whatever she wants on the side, and the students could say, well, we're embarrassed by the fact that our teacher is doing that. Okay, but that's nothing to do with you, right? And then there are the relationships that are much more binding, like marriage. So many things that are ours, and so many things that really do pertain to both of us. But with all that, there's still so many things that don't pertain to both of us. So important to understand that. I think more confusion actually comes from the things that pertain to both of us than the ones that don't. Which means what's mine belongs to me. And sometimes people respect it, or they understand it, or they just don't have the choice, and they just let someone do what they want. When it comes to ours, that's when I'm going to take control. Well, why are you taking control when it's ours? Ours, by definition, means that we have to agree on it. So it's very important to understand these concepts. Now, the idea of boundaries is not that each person should be respecting and holding on to and controlling their boundary. This is mine, so I'm going to take care of myself. It's the opposite as well. The idea of understanding boundaries properly is that I should be taking care of my own and making sure that my boundaries aren't being violated or intruded upon. But at the same time, I should be taking care of yours. The fact that we're in a relationship where we care for each other means that I care for mine and for yours. So I'm making sure that I'm not violating yours, and I'm making sure that mine's not being violated as well. It's not about I'm protecting myself. People hear this concept of boundaries. It looks like, well, I'm going to protect myself from you. Why would you protect yourself from your spouse? I'm not protecting myself from anyone. I'm protecting myself from everyone because I want to make sure that nobody is going to tell me how I should be living my life and deciding for me. And it's a very, very, very important thing. Now, part of a boundary, and this is also the part where people get confused sometimes, is expressing myself. I'm allowed to express myself. My thoughts and my opinions and my desires and the things that bother me, I'm allowed to express those. They're mine. When somebody says, well, you can't say that, you can't talk about this, I don't want to hear it. Well, that's also intruding. It's not letting me be who I want to be. And here's where it gets a little confusing, because part of the idea of me respecting your boundary is that I'm not going to control you or decide for you or demand or dictate what you should be doing. Does it mean that I'm not allowed to express myself and say what I appreciate if you do? Well, it's my boundary. Why are you saying that? Well, I'm allowed to say what. If I can't say something, right? When somebody's either stonewalling or different things that people do to make someone not be able to. Why shouldn't I be able to express myself? It's important that I be able to express myself. Just recently, I was dealing with a situation where two people in a relationship where one was demanding that the other do something. Let's call it do something, be involved in a certain activity, and the other was demanding that the first one shouldn't even talk about it. Shouldn't even talk about it. You shouldn't tell me that you want me to be involved in this activity. It's my decision. Now, when you break it down, I think they're both wrong. I think Mr. A is allowed to tell Mr. B that I would appreciate if you get involved in that activity, and Mr. B is allowed to hear Mr. A saying that he would appreciate if you're involved in that activity. Mr. B is allowed to decide if they want to be involved in that activity, and Mr. A should be acknowledging that Mr. B has the right to decide if they want to be involved. It's not either or. It's not, I could tell you what to do and you have to do it because if you love me or because we're in this relationship together or for whatever other reasons that we can come up with, you have to do what I want. I think that's all wrong. On the other hand, you can't tell me what you like because it's my decision. Why can't I tell you what I like though? So I think when you break it down, it's not so complicated. It's not so limiting. On the contrary, it's just respectful. It breaks it down into a science where people could appreciate and realize what makes sense over here. Are we doing this right? Are we doing this wrong? If we're doing it wrong, what could be done better? Instead of playing ping pong, one day we demand and we be controlled, and the other day we fight back, and now you can't even say it anymore, and the third day we plot and we say it again, we start controlling all over again. I think it's very important to know how to break that down. So I think it's important to know how to express yourself, say what you like, without what I call all these manipulations and all these controlling statements, which you mentioned in this letter over here, like people say often, well, if you'd care for me or love me, then you would do it like this. Well, first of all, I don't think it's nice to say it. But second of all, it's incorrect. I could love you dearly and still want to make my own decision about something. Right? Doesn't mean that you're not allowed to ask me what you like. Of course you could. You should. If we love each other, then I should want to hear what you have to say, and you should want to tell me what you have to say, without making me do things the way you want. Calling someone mean for not doing what you want, I think that alone is very mean. You're so mean. Why? How come you're not doing it my way? If you can't explain it to me in a way that I understand it, it's because you're mean. What does that mean? Someone has the right to want something differently without having to explain it or without being able to explain it even. And even if they just don't want to do it because that's what they prefer without even having an explanation, why does that make them mean? It has to be so clearly explained. Now, there are people that are mean out there. I'm not saying there aren't. And if somebody's being mean to you, I wonder if there's a reason why. I don't even know. But so often, just to understand that you're not mean. You like this, I like that, and I don't even know why I like it. Right? Because the words in the Surim use, Ein Tam Berusen. I can't explain why I want something. It's just something I want. Now, if I wouldn't be a person and I wouldn't have my wants and my desires and my thoughts and my opinions, then of course I would do everything the way you want. Why not? I love you. But the second I also want something, then why does that get pushed to the side just because I can't explain it or just because I care for you? Very, very important. If somebody tells you something like, well, I mean you're good, or the Torah says so, again, it's all nice words, and sometimes they're sincere, sometimes. I can mean you're good, and I can tell you that it's important for you to go check yourself out by a doctor. Or I can tell you I think it's good for you to work on this skill that you're missing or whatever it is. And I talk I mean you're good. I still have to understand that even if I mean you're good, it's your decision. And even pulling the Torah card, but Hashem said so. Again, Hashem's not coming to you in a dream and telling you what to tell your spouse. We all know what Hashem wants, and we all have our areas that we have to improve on to impress Hashem and fulfill His will, and it's not something to put on each other. So I think that even when it is genuine, all these things, even when it's genuine, even if it's truly how you feel, and even if you mean the other person's good, it's so important to allow the other person, the right to make decisions and just be respectful. And I'm saying again, even if somebody just resists, just because when you tell me what to do, I can't do it. Well, then you really mean, just because I told you, no other reason you would have done it otherwise? Sometimes, for some people, that alone is like suffocating. It's suffocating to me when you tell me what to do, and that's my resistance. Sorry, I'm not a mean person, I don't mean to hurt you, I can't work this way. So again, that's a personal limitation maybe that I have, and it's not personal, I'm not doing it to hurt you, I'm doing it because it becomes difficult for me to be dictated how to go and when to do things, and sometimes when someone tells me exactly how to do it, I do it just the opposite. You see this with kids all the time. They don't mean to hurt you. It's a difficulty people have, whether you could explain it or not. It's a legitimate personal feeling to resist being controlled. I think it's important for people just to acknowledge that without fighting it and without trying to work around it. I think in general, back to the idea of the weakness that I spoke about, it's nice to explain yourself. And when you could explain yourself, you should explain yourself. But if you already explained yourself once, or somebody explained themselves to you once, there's probably no point in going in. It doesn't have to become a debate. But I don't understand yet. You don't have to understand. I was nice enough to explain myself. And it's a feeling. You can't always even explain a feeling. And by the time you're trying to explain it the third time, without realizing it's not going anywhere, you're wasting your time. I think it's so important for husband and wife and partners and siblings and everyone to just understand it. Now, it's true. I think everyone on their own level, on their own turf, should contemplate, am I just being mean? Could I do this for someone else? Should I be doing it for someone else? I think it's wonderful. Hashem gave you a husband, Hashem gave you a wife. I think the most wonderful thing you could do is try to please them. I hope nothing I'm saying makes it sound like I don't believe in pleasing someone. I think it's fine and normal and healthy to make a lot of decisions based on how somebody else will appreciate it if you care about that person and love them. It's just that you have the right to decide otherwise, and sometimes you're also a person and you don't want to do it right now like that. And you shouldn't have to feel that the need that you must do it that way. So, like I said, I think it's very important to understand. You asked me for examples. With husband and wife, obviously there's so much more in common, so much more shared territory than in most other relationships. It's true, but it's still so important to break it down and really understand who's asking of what, who's asking who to do what. That's always how I try to capture the idea, right? It's so easy to manipulate and to say, well, it affects me. How does it affect you? Well, it affects me because it's my image or my feelings, and if you dress this way, or if you come at that time, or if you associate with these people, then it makes me feel a certain way. Okay, does that mean that it has to do with you? At the end of the day, you want me to do something, right? So who's asking who to do what? Now, there are intolerables and there are things that are off limits. Now, there are times and places where somebody will say, listen, you can do whatever you want, but I can't live this way. And sometimes, things are out of bounds. My point is just that in general, the fact that you don't like what someone does, and you're able to twist it in a way that you show how it affects you, but it's not really affecting you personally. Because it's that person making a decision about how they're going to behave. And it's affecting them as well, obviously. I think it's so important to... So I think examples, you asked me for examples, I think examples are endless, but I can give you some examples that I heard recently. Like I say, from the last couple of weeks of some case studies that I could tell you. I think a husband should have the right to decide where to daven, how to dress, how much to learn, with who to learn, which occupation he has, which job he takes, if and how and when he's learning with his children and following in their progress, how he relates to his or her parents, for example, attending simchas. These are examples that I had literally in the last 2 weeks where so many husbands complained about all these points where they were being told exactly how and when to do these things. Now, there are things that a husband undertakes when he gets married, to provide and to, there are things that he has to do. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the things that he's technically, he should be able to make these decisions on his own. And the other way around as well. Also, just recently, women that had issues being dictated exactly how they dress, or which job to take, or how they're doing work, or which friends they have to do with, and how they're interacting with their friends, or different house chores, how they're arranging things, and how they're organizing things, and how they're taking care of things. Again, there are things that truly affect the other person. There are things that are not Torah Ozgal. There are things that we really do need guidance, like should I be allowing this? Is it okay? Is it a bad influence for my children? I hope I don't make it sound like everything just boils down to this and you just let the other person do whatever they want. But in general, there are so many things where somebody decides, well, I have the right to tell you how to do it. And you don't really have that right. But my wife should be more respectful than that. Oh, she should. She should. But it doesn't mean you control someone. It doesn't mean that this is your place to now, capture someone and say, you got to do it my way. So, the other way around. I mean, I think it's clear that husband, wife, husband, I talk about this often. This is Torah, not me. The relationship is different. The amount that a husband is supposed to be doing what his wife wants, or the amount that she's supposed to be doing what he wants, is definitely not the same. Definitely not the same. But I'm talking now in terms of relationships. I'm not even looking back to quote what the Torah is saying, who should be doing what the other one wants. I'm talking in terms of a healthy relationship. It's where people respect each other's individuality and they understand that, yes, you have your decisions to make and you're controlling different things, and that's very important. Now, of course, you could ask someone to do things, like I said. It could be very legitimate requests. Requests should be taken seriously, like I said before. I keep on saying these things again and again, not because I have OCD, which I might have, but because I hope it doesn't sound like a contradiction. And respecting boundaries and making requests and thinking of how much you want to actually please someone and knowing that you have the right to make your own decision, none of this is contradictory. So I think it's very important that, that it's often... another thing, like I said before, also about the hours, it's also very important to know how to decide what belongs to both of us, whether it's the home, or the children, or the things that we share, or the activities that we are involved in together. It belongs to both of us. So why are we waiting for both of us to want the same thing? That basically means that the one who wants it can't do it till the other one wants, so the other one's in control. We have to share these things and be respectful of each other. So I think this is all, and it comes down to even pettier things, I think, where sometimes the spouse feels comfortable telling the other one exactly what to do, like literally dictating. It's not even a boundary. It's not even like an area that I'm controlling. It's more like, call your mother and tell her this and this. What? Yeah, I said you have to call your mother and tell her, I'll call her soon. No, you have to call her now. Okay? Call her and tell her these words. But no, I don't want to say it that way. No, you have to stand here and call her, and I want to hear you say it this way. It sounds crazy maybe? I hear it all the time. You go now to the store and buy this thing, but I don't want to go out now. No, you have to go out now. This has nothing to do with boundaries. This is not a normal relationship. Whoever's being dictated and barked at, these kind of commands, there's something wrong there. Now again, I don't want to rock the boat and make it worse than it is and make you upset at your spouse for dictating. You just have to be aware. One second. You're asking me to do something? I could do things the way I want. I could not do things that I don't want. No, but you have to, because you're the one that told your mother in the first place. And you have to call my mother, you have to call your uncle, you have to call this one, that one. It's not okay. You have to call the son's Rebbe. You have to call I'm just using the word call because that's a common example, but it's call and go and do and stop doing and cancel and thing. It's so important. People should not be afraid of each other. It's not a healthy relationship. It's not where you're afraid of each other. It's where you respect each other, understand each other. You live together with each other. You're in something together. It's just so important. Now, it's so easy, going back to another point that was mentioned in the letter, it's so easy to use Hashem when it comes to these things. Hashem wants this, Hashem wants that. Like I said, it's even when it's wrong, even when it's right, it's so wrong. And very often it's inaccurate. I mean, I don't understand why people even make these claims. The right way to do it is like this. Well, what does it mean, the right way to do it? Does it mean that it's mandatory? Does it mean that everyone has to do it that way? Does it mean that everyone does it that way? Or it means that you decided that it's nice to do it that way? Are you comfortable, you and your spouse, actually picking up a phone, asking a Rav or Das Torah, is this a must? How often you come up with these things, like this is how you have to do it. Now, even if it is how you have to do it, not necessarily is it your place to control the other person and make them do something. We all have things that we have to do better, and not necessarily should someone else be making those decisions for us. But it's clear that men have their weak points and things that they have to do. Women have their weak points and things that they have to do. And it's important to acknowledge each other's struggle and difficulty. It's important to be respectful of it. It's important to be considerate of it. All these things are so... We tend to be very considerate of ourselves. We tend to know how to rationalize and work things out because I'm not really up to it or whatever. The other person is not any less not up to it. There's the famous story about the Satmaruv, where somebody, I guess he was boasting, I think that's how the story goes, he was boasting the Satmaruv that in his house on Pesach, everything is Heimish. Doesn't buy anything from outside. Everything is just what he makes at home. Everything is just what he was cooked at home and baked at home, and there's nothing from the outside on Pesach. Some was very impressed. He said, wow, do you also have must? Instead of the grape juice, you squeeze your own grapes and make your own grape juice. You have that also? He said, no, that's one thing, Taka, that we buy. He said, because that's the one thing that you would have to make. Generally, the men are the ones that make the must, not the women. So everything else your wife is doing. Okay, so you're very proud that you told your wife how to make everything in the kitchen, and when it comes to you, that's when you rely on Kedem. Now, again, it's no different. Again, same joke. Again, I guess it's always against the men when it comes to these kind of jokes. The guy who comes home from the Tznius Asifa saying that there was a Asifa, awareness about Tznius, and he made a Kabbalah that his wife is going to cut her shaitel. So he made the Kabbalah that she's going to do something. And it goes the other way as well. We have to understand that we each have our own things to work on. We have to understand that someone else has their things to work on. We're still allowed to mention something. We should always be allowed to mention something at home. Never be afraid to mention something or be manipulated or warned into not bringing up a certain topic, but of course it has to be brought up the right way as well. But it's important for people to know each other's thing. Somebody was telling me recently also, it was a Yiddishkeit thing where the woman undertook a certain kind of honesty, a certain level of honesty where everything is going to be very legal and very honest, and she's dictating to her husband now how he has to conduct his business, now he has to conduct different things because she can't live with a certain amount of dishonesty, which was technically what everyone does, but she can't handle it. So he's busy doing things in a certain way because that's what she decided is the right thing to do. Now again, if she wants to do it, her way, that's wonderful. If it demands of her something and it's not disturbing anyone, that should be wonderful. But it's important to understand that this is not how it's supposed to be. You want to do something a certain way with a certain standard. It's a wonderful thing. Make sure that somebody else is okay with that. Who are you demanding of? Now again, women should be respectful of their husband's wishes, and husbands should want to please their wives. It's just important to break it down and realize that we still remain, I remain I, and you remain you, and we remain we. And with the we, there's still the I, and there's still the you, and there's all that. I spoke about many times about privacy, where people take each other's phones, or sometimes it's only one way actually. Guys tell me all the time, they have to erase texts before they go home because they're afraid their wife will take the phone and start looking at the text, start interrogating. Now, is it nice to live a private life where your wife doesn't know what you're doing? No, it would be wonderful if we could share everything. But if you can't because you'll be interrogated, that's a problem. And very often, people tell me these things. I say, is your wife okay with you looking through her text as well? Oh, no, that not. Even if she would be. Everyone has the right to their own privacy. Now, I'll end off with this. People see this as distancing. I hear it all the time. Well, boundaries, or mine and yours, so we're not close anymore. We're not close anymore. This is a recipe for closeness. It's a recipe for connection. It's a recipe for comfort. When I respect myself and I respect you, and you respect yourself and you respect me, and we share a lot of things together, we're close. We feel comfortable. We feel safe. We feel secure. We feel very connected. We feel very connected. We feel very respected. Very often, the people that are complaining about this, how distancing it is, are the ones that are distant already. It's like somebody who, I heard a woman was complaining that I ruined her marriage. I ruined her marriage. Rabbi Gruen ruined my marriage. No, could be. It could be such a thing. I'm not saying that it never happened. I don't know. But in that case where I got that regard, Rabbi Gruen ruined my marriage. I ruined your marriage. You make it sound like I knocked on your door and you were so happily married, and I ruined your marriage. Your husband came complaining to me and crying to me and telling me that he was about to get divorced. And I saw that it was dysfunctional. I was trying to help him and put him on 2 feet. And you didn't like that I was telling him that he doesn't have to be afraid of you. I didn't ruin your marriage. I was trying to help you and your husband because your marriage was in shambles, and that wasn't a marriage. Now, I'm not saying this to stick up for myself for. This wasn't recent. I didn't mean that. My point is that when people say that the idea of boundaries is distancing, is that coming because you were really feeling both so close to each other and now you're slowly drifting apart because you're being more respectful of each other's boundaries? Or was one of you feeling very comfortable being on top of the other one, and now you're hearing that you shouldn't be doing that anymore, and you feel distant because you want to be able to smother and control and dictate and whatever. It's very important to understand that you can build a relationship when there's less fear and less control and less intimidation, a lot stronger, than when there is. And like I started off, this is when things are healthy and balanced, and people have certain givens just because they were either brought up healthy, or they're very easy-natured, or they're very intelligent, however you want to. Some people get all this on their own. Like I said, you'll study a real healthy relationship where people are truly happy with each other. They're most often doing all this already. They're not on top of each other. They're letting each other breathe, and they're connecting, and they're happy with each other. And they're happy over where where they do connect. So let me just recap. The idea of boundaries, like I said, the idea just is that when people join a relationship, they don't lose their identity and they don't lose their individuality. That's the concept. The examples are even within a marriage, just understanding that each one has their own decisions to make and to be respectful of each other and to share certain things where that's where we both are considerate one of another. Like I said, using Hashem or just deciding where you want to be very idealistic, and by doing that, throwing something on the other person, it obviously doesn't make any sense, whether it's privacy issues or other things that have to be respected. And like I said, this brings closeness. This brings closeness. So maybe I was extrapolating a little bit from the Kedesh Levi's idea of Yosef Hoyeb Mitzrayim, but just like Yosef was a Mitzrayim, and he remained who he was, and he remained himself, which for Yiddishkeit purposes was the best thing he could do, and was actually what brought us Geilas Mitzrayim. I think it's the same thing with everyone. We have to be ourselves, even in a relationship, even within a certain commitment or certain connection. And hopefully when we're respectful of each other and understand each other properly, we will all be able to live together with true Ahava, Arba Shalom Rayas.